Story 1. They still ask how you are doing and take 1,000 years to say what they want. I hate that. Story 2. Good morning, coworker. I am contacting you about the topic and have included the reference so you can pull it up if needed. When you have a free moment, could you please explain what happened with this item that ended up on my desk? I understand you may not be able to reply immediately. Story 3. I hate that so much. Here is a classic exchange that happens daily. Coworker. Hey, got a moment? Me, sure. How can I help? Coworker calls. Me. I ignore the call because I am already on another call. Sorry, I am in a meeting but mostly listening. I can try to help if you tell me what you need. Coworker. Let me know when you're free. It's easier over voice. 2 hours later, I call back. Hey, what did you need? Coworker. Can you give John access to this project? It's kind of urgent. Me, silence. If you had just sent one message, good morning. When you get a chance, can you give John access to this project? Or even better, open a ticket. Story 4. I ignore the hi messages completely and wait until something more substantive arrives. Unless it is from a friend. Story 5. Sometimes I hit enter instead of shift enter, and then I scramble with a follow-up that is not as well put together as I had originally intended. Story 6. An even worse crime is calling after replying to their hi message. Story 7. I am Australian. This drives me insane. If you are saying hello or requesting a call, please give some context about why you are calling. For example, hi Def. I received the following request from Business Unit X and I am told you can clarify how System Y handles this. Can we please have a call when you are free? Instead of hi Def. Hope you are well. Do you have time for a call now? Me, no, I am in the middle of something. How can I help you? Caller. I have a request I hope you can clarify. Me, what is the request about? Caller. It is about System Y. I am told you are familiar with it. Story 8. For repeat offenders, I like to trap them in bland, polite chit-chat. I ask about their weekend, their children, how their house move is going, stock options, their favorite television show, or other questions that invite a reply. If you send me a Microsoft Teams chat saying hi, be prepared for me to ask about your favorite color and your earliest childhood memory before you get to ask your question. Story 9. I think it depends on office culture and can vary widely. When I worked on a team of American engineers, sending a simple greeting like hi or good morning instead of directly asking for the drawings for Project X was seen as rude and a waste of time. Conversely, when I worked with Indian colleagues, it was considered rude to assign a task without an obligatory small talk exchange first. Now I work at a smaller company in the Midwest with fewer technical people, and it lands somewhere in the middle. A good morning would be seen as a waste of time and probably would not get a reply. A curt command to do the work would be seen as abrupt. Messages usually look more like, how is it going? And can you send me the Project X documentation when you have a minute? You have to find the acceptable level. Every workplace has someone who does it their own way without realizing or caring that they are annoying everyone else. When I led a team of mixed German and French engineers, it was challenging. If I asked a German how his day was going via Microsoft Teams, he wanted to know why I was asking and immediately became defensive or irritated. If I asked a French colleague to do something and added some trivial pleasantries, I would get complaints that I never ask about their families or whatever. Story 10. Annoying, to say the least. I have a notification message turned on that displays above the message field saying I am currently busy, please add context, and I will get back to you. Some people still just write hi and wait for a response. I ignore them for a while, then ask if my notification message is displaying. If people feel they have to do the pleasantries, it is not hard to write, hi, how are you? State why you are contacting me. Story 11. My status message is always, please ask your question in the first message. Story 12. Watching the coworker is typing indicator for several minutes while I'm waiting for an answer is frustrating. Just hit enter so I know you are still responding. 3 minutes later their reply was, yeah. Got an example? Then they said, fuck you man. Story 13. I leave my read receipts on so they know I saw their hello and am not responding. Story 14. I hate that. Please give me your request and let us get on with it. Story 15. I had a boyfriend who did this with text messages. We are no longer together. Story 16. Hi. I do this often. Why I do it? Generally when my request is not urgent. I do not want the recipient to feel unnecessary pressure to act before they can do so comfortably. I am in a leadership position and sensitive to the risk that a low-urgency request from me might be treated as urgent because of my role. I think of the word hey as meaning I have something for you whenever you are free, but there is no rush. I could simply say that and spell it out in one message. I will be honest. I never gave this much thought, but this thread has revealed a blind spot, so thanks, Reddit. Going forward, I will aim to stop. Story 17. I will ignore anyone who does this to me. Often they give up and bother someone else. Story 18. These are the same people who ask if an item is still available on Facebook Marketplace. Story 19. I always say, hey, can I get that? I also say good morning, did that ever come in? Do you want me to handle it? I am hoping to lead by example because it stresses me out when there are 5 to 10 minutes between a greeting and the actual request. It does not seem to be catching on. Story 20. This happened in a Discord chat with 2 different people recently. I immediately told both of them to get it right, politely. The second time I tell them I will not be polite. This is a common problem some people have when communicating. I cannot be bothered to tolerate it, even in brief, friendly social messages, when it takes such a tiny effort to be considerate. Story 21. Probably for the same reason it annoys you. It pressures you to respond immediately to the message or shows that you chose to ignore it while you were processing it. Story 22. Tell me what you need and I'll help you. We know each other, Janet. Get to the point. What's really annoying is when some doofus insists that everyone turn on their cameras. It's distracting and, frankly, unnecessary. Now I have to stare into the camera and keep a straight face when I could be multitasking. Story 23. Coworker. Hey, how are you? Me half an hour later, even though I saw the message and waited to see if he would type more. Hey, I am good. Did you need something? Coworker. Why do you think I always need something? Me. Because we are at work? This is my biggest pet peeve. Especially when later they say, I have something urgent. If it were urgent, you should have said so immediately. Story 24. My response is, hi, what can I help you with? It gives a polite greeting and prompts the person to get down to business. Story 25. I'll do small talk any day of the week, but brief Microsoft Teams meetings are mind-numbing. Story 26. This is the reason I have the following website as a greeting in my Slack. nohello.net/n. Story 27. I hate when people do that. It does not matter if it is a coworker on Microsoft Teams or a friend messaging me by text or on WhatsApp. Also the hey wayward. How are you doing? Messages, especially from my line manager or my ex-husband. My mind immediately goes to, what do you want? And they always want something. Never send an I've got news message, whether good, bad, or indifferent, or any other vague, offloading text unless you plan to follow up with more information immediately. The worst offender in my life is an ex-boyfriend who is the master of vague, upsetting messaging. Most recently, he messaged, just before I was about to settle after a long day. I just had the worst conversation with my low-contact sister about my mother. His mother and I adore each other and are still close. Several minutes passed with nothing further. I replied, you can phone if you'd like. I'm free. He said, I'm upset. Can we talk tomorrow? I said, yeah, fine. But in future, don't send me vague and upsetting messages at 8 p.m. when you do not plan to tell me what is going on until the next day. I want to sleep, not fret over what might or might not have happened to your mother. That was seriously rude. Postscript. He did phone me, and it was not as bad as I had feared. She is elderly and fragile, and those of you who have beloved older people in your life know what it is to live with the idea that you will not have them healthy, themselves, or at all for much longer. Story 28. In my experience, it is usually, though not exclusively, older colleagues who still follow pre-chatbox social conventions. Before the pandemic, at my workplace, it was common for people to call or drop in unannounced when they needed something. it was considered impolite to just show up or call and demand, "I need you to stop what you are doing and do this now." Instead, you were expected to ask how the other person had been and do a little small talk first. Those people have really struggled to adapt to the more efficient methods of modern communication. I still know people at work who hate emails that could have been a phone call. Many of us who grew up with Microsoft Messenger, Facebook Messenger, and WhatsApp find that bizarre. Because if you handle something by phone, you often have only one hand free, you cannot sort requests by priority, and you can feel verbally held hostage. Just because something is urgent for the caller does not mean it is the most important thing for you. Worst of all, you have to keep track of everything they say without being able to review it through all the small talk, fumbled words, tangents, and pause fillers. Story 29. I'm sure some people hate this, but I don't care. I work smarter, not harder, and I know neither one of us gives a shit about pleasantries. The beginnings of my conversations usually sound like this: "Hey, so-and-so needs authorization for this. Thanks." Or, "Hey, I see you are working on this. Could you tell me more information than what you wrote in the chart?" Story 30. I used to get straight to the point. "Hi, colleague. I am currently experiencing an issue with X. If you have a moment, could we discuss it in more detail?" I was told I come across as too direct sometimes and that people appreciate it if you open by asking how they are first. So now I do it too, even though I think it is ridiculous. We are colleagues working together. I do not need people asking how I am. I just want the work to get done. Story 31. I am a chat agent. I often get a chat that begins with the words, "I have a question." I try to guess the question until they tell me. Story 32. My coworker, who is a level above me but not technically my boss, does this to everyone and even forces me to do it when he hovers over me like a lost puppy after telling me to reach out to someone to help fix a minor issue I could probably figure out myself. It drives me absolutely insane. Story 33. Give me the message bluntly and directly. Let's be honest. In relationship terms, we are neutral at best. You are my colleague, not my friend. Just ask for whatever outcome will likely encumber me, then leave. That is preferable to exchanging pleasantries only to get the same unpleasant result. Story 34. I hate this so much. Why do we have to waste time? Often it is followed by a response time of 2 hours, right after I respond to their greeting within 5 minutes. Story 35. On the same note, busy. Why am I answering this question now? The real reply is, of course I'm busy, but I will make time for you. Instead, I have to either say I'm not busy or give an explanation. I would respond immediately, "How can I help you?" Story 36. Because some people like to build suspense, it's not a chat. It's a mystery thriller. Story 37. Generally, if someone does this to me and they are not already on a call, I will call them. Story 38. The only thing more annoying is when someone sends multiple messages for each sentence in their reply. Story 39. Is there a good time today to talk? Our calendars are open for a reason. If you want to talk to me, look for an available time. What do you want me to do? Interrupt what I am working on and pull up your calendar. Story 40. At my last job, people used to do this, so I began to ignore them. You may say hi, but please follow up with what you need. Story 41. I have a friend who will text me that he has a question for me and then just wait. I do not always reply to texts right away, so sometimes he has forgotten what he wanted to ask by the time I respond. Story 42. If you are going to do something like that, send a detailed email explaining what you want. A hello message is an opening to a long-winded request that I usually do not have time for. Story 43. Personally, I will take a random hello, call over a random ringtone with no context. I prefer "hey" when you have a minute because, depending on severity or importance, I see it as, I do not need you to respond immediately, but I need to speak with you when you can. Those blind calls at random times are frustrating. I have started turning off Microsoft Teams before sending emails to certain people at the end of the day because they do not read the email and instead make a blind call to ask a question already answered in the email. Story 44. When I started at my job, my boss said it was company culture to do this out of politeness. She was the only one who ever did it. Story 45. I don't mind the hi. What I do mind is when I reply and they don't respond right away. Story 46. I just ignore those messages, especially if I respond in kind and then have to wait another 12 years for them to start typing again. My boss even has it in his status that he does not respond to simple greetings. Tell me what you want in your first message or I will not reply. Examples like hi real name, got 5 minutes for a chat, or hi real name, I was looking for something and hope you can help refine. But just hi real name and that is it? Now, story 47. My favorite. Hi, how was your weekend? Are you busy? Can I ask you a question? Then finally they ask the question. Sigh. Story 48. I don't know what's so hard about something like, good morning, Fienturi. Hope you're doing okay. If you have a moment, I was wondering about whatever. When you get a chance, can you take a look? Then I can see it all at once, make a mental note, give a thumbs up, and write a few words to let them know I understand. Then I can wander off again instead of watching those maddening dancing dots for 5 minutes straight. Story 49. Oh my God, my cousin does this when he's drunk. It's like, please stop with the prompts and just say what you want to say. Or can I ask you a question? Sometimes I just won't reply and the question never comes. Story 50. My wife does this by text. She will send hey and wait for me to respond. Just send me what you were going to send. Unless I destroy my phone somehow in those few seconds, the message will still be there. Story 51. I work with a programming team in India and they all do this. I am not sure if it is cultural, but I absolutely hate it, especially when I respond and do not hear anything back for 5 or more minutes. If you have the time and energy to send me a hi, then you can tell me what you want right away so we are not wasting each other's time. Story 52. I love this post. There is someone at my workplace with whom I have a Microsoft Teams chat that consists of 20 or more messages in which he only says hi. I have never replied. If he wants something, he will ask for it. Story 53. Nothing angers me more than someone speeding up when I am entering their lane. I do not respond. I only answer their question if they continue to press the issue. Story 54. I always set my status to ask your question or make your comment. Do not just say hi or morning. When people said hi, I left them on read and went back to work without responding. Some people got over their cultural need for small talk. Others did not. Story 55. I just ignore those. If it is important, they will follow up. Story 56. This irritates me so much. I work in information technology, so every message I receive is someone asking for something. Please just tell me what you need. Story 57. God, I hate Microsoft Teams and talking to people. I have a couple of coworkers who get so stupidly butthurt when I ask them a question without saying good morning or some such bullshit. Just answer my question. We're not friends. Story 58. I just ignore those messages until they state exactly what they want. Story 59. I work for a community college. It is slow. People are protected by a union, which is great. But the drawback is that employees who do not keep up with instant messaging have less reason to learn it. If I email someone, it gives them a reason to take their time to respond, and it gives me a reason to reply later if I am busy. If I use Slack or Microsoft Teams to instant message them, I know that once they answer, I can respond and keep their attention and we can have a conversation. When I send a detailed message, they might respond by email instead of in chat. I always include the information the other party needs so they can give me a proper response however they prefer. I can see why people just say hello. I only get upset when an administrative person messages with a brief greeting because it makes me worry they are waiting on me for something important. Story 60. We are expected to say hello and wait for confirmation before typing anything else because you do not know who might be at their computer or who could be connected to a conference screen. This happened to me last week. I was talking to 2 directors when they saw a colleague repeatedly posting messages and having a meltdown after I said I was in a meeting and would get back in 30 minutes. From the messages, it was clear the issue had nothing to do with me, which she knew. She came across as extremely unprofessional. Story 61. I used to do this because I thought it was impolite to dump a request on someone without engaging them first. You would not do that in a face-to-face conversation. You would have some banter first. I changed my mind after too many occasions as a recipient when I would get a greeting, reply, and then not hear what they actually wanted for hours. It is especially stressful when it is the boss and I have to anxiously wonder all day. Story 62. This is the same as someone saying, "Do you have plans this weekend?" No. Then you will be free to do something. Story 63. I've lost count of the number of people I've had to teach to stop being so polite and dropping everything at the first message. But it's worth it. Being able to triage messages to see who needs your time most is a blessing. Story 64. Wow. Some of you are all business. I start with a hi or something attention-getting because it's courteous. If a colleague approached me in person and got right into what they wanted instead of starting with hey, it would be rude. I'm also less likely to miss the first part of what they say. Starting with hi lets the person know you are busy, either because you tell them or because you do not respond right away. You could do the same after they ask their question or make their request, but if they know you are unavailable, they can save time by not asking. Story 65. I am guilty of this. I want to introduce myself, explain the situation, and have a conversation rather than simply dropping a paragraph on someone who may not be available. Clearly, I need to change my approach. Story 66. When I used to start a conversation with hi and then wait, I realized I was forcing the recipient and me to be available at the same time. That is not how social messaging works. Social messaging lets the sender and receiver be disconnected. Now I start with hi or good morning and immediately state why I am contacting them. That lets them reply in their own time. Story 67. I do not respond to hi. I have messages months old that I have not responded to. I do not have time for chit-chat. Tell me what you want or go away. Story 68. I behave this way because I am a civilized person. I also write good morning in the first message of the day to someone, and depending on how it goes, I wish them what is appropriate for the time or day, for example, Happy Halloween or enjoy your weekend. I wait to write a question until after your response because I want the exchange to be short and productive, not a drawn-out conversation over a 2-minute matter. If I need more than that, I call. Story 69. I cannot stand it when someone messages me with a wall of text out of the blue without saying hello first. It is like calling someone and launching into your topic when they answer without greeting them. This is especially true if you need something quickly. You should say hello, hi, hey, or greetings to get their attention if they are at their computer. Both written and spoken language include greetings, some more formal than others, and they are expected when initiating a conversation. I used to work in technical support, so I die on the inside when people message me unexpectedly, because at least half the time it is someone asking me to fix something they did not open a ticket for. Have the decency to be polite if you intend to cut in front of the people who actually open tickets. Story 70. I am the type of person who replies with hi to anyone who only sends hi. Story 71. I do this out of respect for what they are doing at the moment. I don't want to break their concentration by immediately jumping into my request. I wait until they indicate they have time for me. Story 72. Sometimes I go on autopilot like I am typing an email. I type hi name, hoping you can help with something. If you press enter, it sends only hi name, and then you have to write the rest of the message quickly. Story 73. I reply to every hi with the no hello response, even if the person outranks me. I have been receiving fewer of these messages. Story 74. I prefer starting with good morning or good afternoon, and then stating what I need. However, I once had a manager who thought I was rude if I did not ask how her day was before getting into the nitty-gritty. She was Southern, so it might be a cultural or traditional thing. Story 75. My old coworker would always do this, and I would mess with her because of it. She would always open with hi name. I would respond, "Oh my God, what do you need now?" She started that way in case I was busy because she did not want to add any more work if her request was not urgent. Story 76. My previous job had a few people like this. It drove me nuts. I stopped replying if all they said was hi. Apparently I got in trouble for being rude, but thankfully I left that place. Story 77. Company culture varies. Some people use Microsoft Teams and some do not. It is auto-installed, and the green status indicator means little. Sometimes I send a greeting and 3 weeks later, long after I have found another way to contact the person, I receive a reply saying they do not use it much. Other times I get a quick, reply, and the conversation continues. I think assigning a task to someone via Microsoft Teams when you have never spoken with them there is rude and not always effective. I treat Teams more like a phone call. The greeting is the ring, and if you are not available, we can talk later. If something is important, it will arrive by email. Story 78. Fuck off asking me how I am. Just tell me what you want. Story 79. I worked for a large Korean company you have heard of. That was the norm in Korean culture and it drove me nuts, along with the whole attitude of leading by fear and abuse. Story 80. Good morning, Mavena. Please help me with my request. One message, polite and concise. Story 81. I have this as my Microsoft Teams status message, nohello.com. Story 82. My favorite is when someone starts with a compliment or expresses concern about something in your life and then immediately asks about where a project stands or what they need and so on. That feels fake. Story 83. I receive messages such as hi or are you around? Even when I am present, I am not available. Story 84. I work in a fully dispersed workplace where people are often on site with customers. Saying hi is an easy way to ask someone to ping you when they have a moment and do not have a customer looking at their screen. Story 85. I do not even respond to these anymore. Tell me what you want or I am not engaging. Story 86. I have a boss or coworker who does this on the phone, and it drives me insane. He will call a delivery place or business and when they answer with a greeting, he replies with an extended polite exchange, asking how they are and offering pleasantries. The staff usually respond that they are fine and ask what he needs. Feels minor and maybe I am overly strict about manners, but he should get to the point. The person on the other end is often very busy and is not answering the phone for small talk. It is hard to tell him that he is being rude by being polite. I am absolutely certain he would do the same if he ever had to call 911 and would not state the emergency until the operator finished the initial verbal exchange. Story 87. It really irritates me, especially when I have to force the actual useful information out of them. But I'm at the other end of the spectrum, overly professional greetings and formatted text, and, if anything, far too much information. Story 88. I tried to write hi and go to a new line, but I held down the wrong key when I pressed the enter key, and they replied before I could edit the message. Story 89. Make it easy for a coworker or boss to help you. Honestly, I pre-write most of the emails when I ask my boss for help. Don't worry too much about trying to be polite. Just get things done as efficiently as possible. Story 90. Hello, my friend. Are you visible today? Story 91. These are the same people who start their Reddit posts with a greeting, as though they are addressing a group of colleagues. In the past, that would have been immediately downvoted regardless of the post's content. The same happened on Stack Overflow. It is sad to see how much Reddit has changed. Story 92. Several of my coworkers do this, but what is especially annoying is when they send me a patient identification number with no context. I have to ask, and then they take a long time to explain what they mean. Story 93. I don't know. Try Tinder. Microsoft Teams does not work every time, and sometimes you can get fired. Do not start conversations on Tinder with hello. That does not work. Story 94. I will not send a single word greeting. If I send a polite greeting without an explanation, it means I am deciding how to handle a situation based on who is immediately available. If you do not respond, I assume you are not available and I will not share the details. If you respond, I will provide the information needed to address the situation. Some matters should not be shared with people who are not directly involved. When I later hear that someone was not present and asks what happened, I usually reply that I was handling an issue and that it is covered. Thank you. Story 95. It is the digital equivalent of walking up to a colleague's desk, standing silently until they remove their headphones, and only then saying that you have a question to get their attention and ensure they are ready to receive input before you present your request. Story 96. I trained myself out of this because I wanted an active conversation about the issue, not an intermittent back and forth. I stopped when I realized how much time was wasted waiting for replies, and now I just say what I need to say. Story 97. I do not do this. but it may be a way of getting someone's attention before making a point. In real life, writing hi first is like calling someone's name and then speaking after they acknowledge you. This prevents them from having to repeat or rephrase what they want to say before the recipient responds. Story 98. I used to have that as my Slack and Teams message, but people would still greet me with hi or hello name. Story 99. I think some people do this to make sure you aren't sharing your screen. They don't want their question potentially shared with others when the preview pops up. Story 100. The best way to combat this is to avoid replying with hello. Ignore the ritual and immediately ask for the essence. Story 101. I just reply with hi. Takes a couple of seconds and it is not a big deal to me. People have different communication styles, or it could be cultural. I tend to receive this type of team message more from my Mexican colleagues than from my American counterparts. Story 102. Honestly, I do it sometimes because I'm trying to see if they're actually available before I dump a whole paragraph on them when they're in a meeting or something. Story 103. This does not bother me. What bothers me is people who send screenshots and ask about something that is not immediately relevant to the image. An image cannot be parsed by the search feature. Put relevant information in the message body or subject to give you and the recipient any chance of finding it days, weeks, or longer when you need it. Story 104. If you want a real answer, as a senior manager, I occasionally ask for an instant message when I want to communicate something potentially sensitive. I was recently in a situation where another manager sent a lot of sensitive information about his frustrations with certain individuals on his team and other teams. Two people were in my office looking at my screen while we edited a PowerPoint chart, and they saw everything. Story 105. So annoying. Our team usually gets requests by email, and we work through them in order. Getting a Microsoft Teams message instead is fine because we can work on it when we have time, or immediately if the request is urgent. Except for messages that only say, hi. They are essentially fishing for an immediate response, expecting that once they have engaged me in conversation I will work on their query immediately. They are queue jumpers and I ignore them because otherwise it is not fair to the requests that came in earlier. Story 106. I guess I like all the people I work with, so when they say hello, I am happy to say it back. Story 107. Manipulation tactic. Some people confirm you are present so they can ask a question and expect a quick response, giving you little time to think. They believe this gives them an advantage because they have time to formulate the request while you must answer immediately. Sometimes people do this out of habit or because they see others doing it and think it is polite, but that is the usual motivation. Story 108. God. This is a huge pet peeve of mine and many others. I saw an article in a major outlet about the rudeness of it, and it is rude. Personally, I ignore single-word greetings. I am extremely busy at work and you have to tell me what you want so I can decide whether I have the mental bandwidth to deal with it right away. Not telling me up front is rude because you are forcing a conversation I do not have time for. Send the message you need and let me respond on my own time. Story 109. I probably got a phone call, got completely distracted or something urgent came up. This, however, is why I usually skip the greeting and ask directly what I wanted. Story 110. I have sent the No Hello website to people who start a conversation with only hi. The Do Not Ask to Ask website encourages people to ask their question directly rather than asking whether they can ask. Story 111. When you meet someone in person, you don't just say hi and start blabbering, right? Maybe both things are related. Story 112. If you start with just a hi, you will only get a wave reaction in return. Story 113. I always write hello before I call my coworker. It is polite, like knocking on a door. Story 114. I only do that for requests that require immediate assistance and that are more than a brief, few-minute task. If the team is too busy, I may seek another resource, and I do not want to disrupt anyone's flow if I will be going elsewhere. Story 115. It's an "Are you busy?" message. I see those and respond only when I am free. Story 116. It is because they want to ensure that you will not ignore their message. If you reply to hi, you show that you are paying attention and will respond. And you cannot say, sorry, I did not see this. It demands your attention and disrespects your priorities. I personally ignore those messages until the sender says what they need, which usually happens after a few minutes. If something is low priority enough to merit a message rather than, "Can we hop on a quick call?" you should state your request immediately instead of leading with, "Hi, how are you?" Bullshit that we both know is fake nice. Story 117. Is this a serious question? Do you want the person to reply when they have time so there can be back and forth? Personally, I open with a greeting and the topic. I do not understand why someone would only say hi. It seems you might be young or work in an industry that does not require extensive communication. Story 118. I train people to get to the point. If you send just the word hi, I will respond later with the same greeting. Providing more information speeds up the process. Story 119. Ironically, this is an area where human resources could make themselves useful and step in to create guidelines for how to communicate via instant messaging. That would make too much sense. I simply never reply to, "Hi, do you have a moment?" Or, "Let me know when you're free for a quick question," on Microsoft Teams or Slack. I suppose I would if my manager or someone higher in the chain of command sent something like that, but that has never happened. Story 120. I ignore that type of message. Get to the point. I have better things to do. Even worse is, I know you're probably busy, but. Story 121. It is just a basic connection protocol. You send a connection request and wait for a reply before you begin transmitting data. Story 122. At my last job, a coworker did this. They were as dumb as the day is long. Every time they said hi, I knew the mental pain was inbound. Story 123. I always start with a greeting such as hi followed by the person's name, then get straight into what I need to say. It is efficient without being rude. If I have already spoken with that person today, I do not lead with hi. I simply get to the point. Story 124. In my experience, people will not respond to a message that is more than 45 seconds old. If I type a paragraph explaining what I want and they are not actively looking at Microsoft Teams when I send it, I have just wasted my time. Story 125. They do this to know whether you are using Microsoft Teams and will answer their question. Some people do not respond quickly or at all unless they are online in Microsoft Teams when they receive the message. Story 126. If it is a work bestie or someone I am comfortable with, I usually start with hi. If it is someone else, I start with hi followed by just wanted to and then continue with the message. Story 127. I have worked in Asia, Europe, and now the United States. Wherever I am, I go straight to the point. Hi, do you know anything about this? Maybe add good morning if it is early in the morning. Laughing out loud. Story 128. I do not reply until they include what they want. If it should have been submitted through a different channel, I ignore it. I turned red receipts off in Microsoft Teams a long time ago. Story 129. I do not usually, but for time-sensitive requests where I need the other person to take action, I send a greeting. Usually I will ask whether they are available. Often, if I just send a task message, people only respond when the task is done. If I need something that takes 5 minutes to complete within 20 minutes and nobody replies until 15 minutes later, I become frantic. Story 130. I usually begin a first-time message with howdy followed by the recipient's first name and then immediately address the issue to save time. Story 131. It's like when someone asks in person whether you are doing anything this weekend. They want you to admit you have no plans so they can ask you to help them move. It's a trap. Story 132. You know what grinds my fucking gears? When someone asks if they can call and then doesn't call for 2 hours. Story 133. I have a few coworkers who do this. They know I write technical reports and do not want to send me a squirrel when I am focusing. I also sometimes keep strange hours that are not always reflected in the instant messaging status. A quick hi is like a knock on the door. I can respond immediately or wait until I have time. Mostly I do not find it annoying because it is a way of respecting my time. Story 134. Honestly, I think a large proportion of users want or expect live chat rather than sending asynchronous messages. Story 135. The worst one I encountered was a man who would message that he was going to call me and then immediately call me. Story 136. This topic has come up a few times with my friends at work. Some people start a conversation by saying instant message. I did until recently. After discussing it, we concluded it was a leftover from the old chat system versus Microsoft Teams. The old chat system would pop up instant messages at the top of the screen, and the do not disturb setting did not do much, so people would say instant message to see if you were willing to chat. I wonder if saying hi is sometimes related to that. Story 137. I cannot access external links. Paste the text here and I will clean and format it as requested. Story 138. I am a little late to the game, but send these people the no hello website. Story 139. I hate people who text like this. In my experience, it is a young people's thing. Just say whatever you want. Why add an unnecessary step? Story 140. Are you there? Had a coworker who would do that multiple times a week. Yes, Sherry. My skittle is green and my calendar shows I am not in a meeting. Just ask your fucking question. Story 141. This drives me insane, especially when colleagues in India send messages at 3 in the morning my time. I now say politely that we are in different time zones and that it is easier to write what they need so we can work asynchronously. Story 142. The recipient could be in a conference sharing their desktop with many eyes on the screen. Consider that before blurting something out. Story 143. I notice our offshore team members do this all the time. It's incredibly annoying. Story 144. Oh my god. I fucking hate Teams. Hi, what's up? No fucking response. Like what the fuck do you want? Story 145. I will not answer hi messages that lack context. It does not matter whether it is a teammate, my manager, or someone else. I do not have time for that. Tell me what you want or go waste someone else's time. Story 146. Genuine answer. I used to be the kind of person who prefaced requests by asking if someone was busy. I thought it was polite to check, so I wasn't launching into demands. I now realize people won't feel obliged just because I asked, and not asking wastes time. Story 147. I don't respond to those. As soon as they ask the question, I will respond quickly. Story 148. We need a public service announcement. Stop overthinking. Say what you want. End of story. People who feel the need to code switch into corporate language for no reason should stop being so rigid. Treat people like people. Story 149. The manager for a project I was assigned to had a lot to say but never put it in the same message. She could have a paragraph or more of comments or questions, yet she always sent every sentence individually. Hi team. I was going through my emails this morning. I see the client asked us a question. Did anyone else see this? Can anyone give me the materials they need so I can reply? For fuck's sake, this could all be said in 1 or 2 sentences in the same message. Stop spamming my notifications with bullshit. Story 150. Because the reverse of this is, hi, I need XX. Hi XX. How are you today? What can I help you with? Story 151. I do not reply until they ask me something. Maybe they just wanted to say hi. Story 152. I don't even say hi. I just get straight to the question. Story 153. My favorite is the passive-aggressive greeting hi. You're not that excited about this, are you? Story 154. Okay. I will try this. Sometimes I check whether someone is available before asking for help. If they are busy, I do the work myself. If they are available, I ask if they can help. I do not want to hand off a task and then complete it myself before they respond, because asking for help and then doing it anyway would make them feel bad. Story 155. This is not acceptable. Why do people waste time like this? Please state what you want in the first message only. Story 156. I was scolded many times by my manager for going straight to work and not being friendly. So I began saying hello and asking people how they are on Microsoft Teams before discussing the subject. Over time, I used this approach only with people who are inclined to respond. For those who prefer to get straight to work, and for new colleagues, I go directly to the topic after a brief, polite introduction. Story 157. My boss does it because he knows it will stress us, and he enjoys messing with us. Story 158. I want to make sure they are not already tied up with something. Story 159. My boss does that to me all the time. I sweat bullets. In my mind, a short hi usually signals something bad. It's always okay in the end, but after 4 years it still messes with me. Story 160. Here is a website dedicated to why you need to stop saying hello before asking a question. Laughing out loud. Story 161. I say hello first because I will ask a time-consuming question. Once they reply, they cannot pretend they are away. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.